I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies.
Welcome to Cookies, the world's most influential basketball podcast. I am Ben Dietrich. Jordan Rodelli is on vacation, but no amount of snow, none, no blizzard can stop Andrew Quo. Mr. Quo, how is your snow day?
Can't ban the snowman, man. I'm like living in Canal Street, the lost years of 2005 to 2010. Listening to Jeezy, all that snow fall. Oh, you're talking about the snow. Oh, okay.
No. I was talking about Jeezy 2005.
Okay, nice.
Contrary to the popularity of that slogan, "Can't ban the snowman," would you say the snowman was banned for like 15 years?
The snowman was banned, man.
Snowman out of here. Decade and a half. No more snowman. Not allowed.
Every time somebody asks me to do anything visually, I'm like, okay, so it's the snowman and what you want to get done. I'm like, no, didn't work this time.
As in like the Jeezy snowman.
Yeah, the best graphic of all time.
It really is.
It really is. Hi Hater, You See Me is also pretty awesome, but the Angry Snowman, which, I would say was one of the most influential graphics that influenced Cookies Hoops, maybe. Its own logo, the big face, the classic big face. But remember on Delancey Street back in the day, there used to be every adaptation of that graphic to the point where there was like kids tees that said like "back to school, man," and I'm like, sure.
Can't ban the back to school, man.
Yeah, it's like we were talking about cocaine, but now we're talking about education, and we're good.
I lived in Crown Heights that time, and those shirts were absolutely everywhere.
So
you could buy them on like Nostrand, or you could buy them on like Fulton Street or whatever. But they were just everywhere. Every kid had one during that summer when the snowman was specifically unbannable.
I mean, it's interesting to think of the longevity of Jeezy. We saw his verses this year. And something like Mike Jones, who had an equally catchy gimmick, but didn't have the lasting power. And I believe Mike Jones went viral the other month because he had he popped up again on Twitter for some reason. I forget why.
There was a sports journalist talking to a football player. And they announced his name, and his name was Mike Jones, and the football player sat there for a few moments, unable to
Lamar Jackson,
curtail his laughing, and was just like, Mike Jones.
How could you resist? How you doing in this blizzard of 21 vibe?
What's up with these blizzard buzzkills? You see them on your social medias. On your socials, they're out there.
Go on.
Oh, looks like New York had some weather.
Oh, are you talking? You talking about like, it's like back in the day, we had hand checking, just like knock them down, that kind of vibe.
Oh, looks like media Twitter in New York City had some weather. Wow, I bet it's white and cold. I'm so over it.
Where's this coming from? Is this old New York or is this Cali? Cali.
Sounds like the haters.
The haters are everywhere. So you mean Boston?
Oh, so it's snowing in New York City? I guess we all have to see photos on Instagram. Is it elegantly cascading from the heavens? Is it accumulating in sculptural drifts and shrouding your rotten city in a temporal, pristine carpet?
Wow. Jeez,
so what?
These haters sound like they read books. Do these haters read books?
Probably do.
Yeah, beyond the haters, like I'm kind of hating this snow this time. Well, only because, and hear me out, only because I usually love snow, but like there's no bars to go to. There's nothing like fun to do. As a kid, you're already at home. So all we have is like something really beautiful to look at, but also it reminds me of like we're all living through a global pandemic.
we had a pod called Blizzard Boys. It was great.
Oh, the classic at the time, the perfect pod. They say it was a classic. Perfect
Back
pod.
then, the perfect storm, the perfect pod.
Yeah.
I love a good blizzard, man.
It's
Like
cool.
it's the majesty of nature.
Wow, listen
Dude,
to
it's
you.
beautiful. It's beautiful.
You got that snow, man.
I mean, you can't ban it.
You can't ban it.
Yes, in a couple days, everyone will be crying about how it's gray and there's like yellow splots from dogs. And yes, we understand how this works.
Get some Hokas, dogs. Come on, man. Get those Hokas strapped in. You're good.
It looks cool as shit. It muffles all the sound. I think that's cool. That's cool.
Wow.
Otherworldly.
Listen to you field recordings, dude, over here. I'm worried about sound fidelity and trapping noise.
I mean, look, I like a good blizzard. I leave the windows open at night.
Blizz.
You can see
Blizzy.
You can see the Blizzy.
Yeah.
And the street lights. It's fantastic. I love a Blizzy.
I mean, I was awake at 7 a.m. this morning before sleep, and it looked awesome. There was
Were you
nothing.
coming back from the club?
I was done raving. I was coming down from my rave in my Hoka boots, in my snow gear, in my snowman tee, and I was loving life. Staring
Listening
out
to
the
the
window.
Blizzard Boys.
The re-listanables, the blizzard, the re-blizzardables.
Relitigating
Yeah,
the Blizzard Boys perfect pod.
I was like,
anyway, I like this shit, man.
it's cool, but you know what I mean? Like, what would you have done in? Maybe you're doing the same thing. What would you have done a year ago if this wasn't a pandemic?
I'm with you. Going to the bar during
Yeah,
a blizzard is great.
Strap in. We're going to the bar.
If you're in Brooklyn, it's tougher because, you don't really want to be on the roads late at night.
Yeah.
But you want to go to a neighborhood bar. Neighborhood bar during a blizzard, during any weather phenomenon is kind of great.
Dime Square, Max Fish. I would have called the bat signal. Maybe met at Clandestino.
Oh, wow.
Maybe
The good old days, yeah.
had one beer, and then like our homie Ivan would have persuaded us to have a shot on our way out to all this beautiful snow. It would have been great.
One beer. We would have had an beer.
Sir, I've already had my beer. Please,
Stay
please.
for one more. How would I do that
I've had my beer.
for the week?
Yeah.
But I'm with you, and knowing you, it would probably be heading to a Christmas restaurant, which serves French food.
Oh man, yeah. Christmas in February 1st, or the last day of January. Yeah, I'd call the troops. I'd send out the bat signal, being like, "We're going Christmas dining, fellas."
I can't believe this is the first day of spring.
It's amazing.
I've decided that February 1st is the first day of spring this year.
Why is that?
I feel like vibe-wise, it's the first day of spring.
Do you know anybody, or did you participate in like sober January?
No.
There's
I
no
don't mean
need,
that in a
right?
dismissive way. I just mean I know people who did, sure. I didn't participate myself in
Yeah.
sober January. But, yeah, I get it. Yeah, start the new year with some sobriety. Yeah, go off.
Brand new January. I think it's a good idea. I don't believe in diets or like crash anything, but sometimes you get Thibodeau and things just change on a dime.
You love incrementalism.
I do. I don't think crashing anything is sustainable. Nix. I see you, Nix.
But no, what I was going to say before, though, about it being spring. Obviously, I'm being somewhat facetious because I know it's not the first day of spring. But
never.
But I do think we had a foreboding feeling about this winter in terms of how dreary it would be that has not thus far come to fruition. I think it's been nice enough during the day, even when it's really cold. There's been sunny days. And when everyone is kind of active during afternoon hours, running their errands, getting some socializing in, and then everyone just kind of goes home at night,
Yeah.
it's it's a different way of experiencing winter. You're not outside when it's dark and at its coldest. Like, walking around in the sun, it's kind of fine. I don't know. I think we all looked upon this coming winter with such dread, in New York specifically,
Yeah.
that thus far it's been okay in terms of kind of the
Vibe?
the
Vibe check?
the vibe check, or I guess sort of the gravity or the weight on our collective shoulders.
Yeah, it's impossible to tell. I think I personally am getting farther away from kind of taking temperature of the room, because haven't been in a room together for so long. But I think like some people are super okay, and other people are not so much. And you just had your boy Justice. I forgot his first name. I just think of David Justice, no sin bin, baseball player, Moneyball. But he's a Republican who was just like, yeah, we should just throw money at people. This is a terrible situation. We can overspend and blow it that way. It's better than the other way. And I'm like, that makes sense to me.
Yeah, I'm not talking about specific situations
Yeah,
of
yeah.
places closing and jobs and foreclosures and rent and eviction. Yes, those are realities that have existed for months. I'm just talking about the idea of winter being this punishment that was headed in the direction of New Yorkers, and we were just waiting for it to descend upon us in all of nature's fury. Like, it's all right.
Yeah, I mean, weather-wise, we've been pretty good, but that might have happened is maybe what my point was. But it's hard for me to really tell because I'm stuck raving by myself.
Self-raver.
Yeah.
What one thing I've also decided to get into is like, and I don't know if this is a winter hunkering, it might be a hunkering effect. Just ordering large amounts of items, like like bulking up.
All right, so beer tacos, as many as the eye can see. You're the explorer of beer tacos.
I gotta say, man, the walk back with the burrito tacos really is a devastating effect on the consistency and the texture of the tacos themselves. You kind of have to eat them there.
Can you bring them back to life somehow? It sounds like a challenge, but can you toast them? Can you pan fry them on a nonstick? What's up?
I don't have the bandwidth.
But it's so hard, right? Because it's fried and then
you can't do it. You can't deconstruct and take the burrito meat out and then put it somewhere else and then reheat the tacos to get them crispy again, because their structure has already been compromised by the 30 minutes that it's been soaking in the meat juices. You just gotta get them fresh out. They're so delicious fresh out, though.
Yep. I've been thinking about carrying around one of those like thermal bags for like hot and cold foods, because I've been doing so much takeout and encountering this issue, right? So I've been thinking about it gets mushy, it steams, but it's the coldness kind of does a number on it too. I don't know.
Like motorcycle dudes or women, anyone who rides a motorcycle, in colder climates, you can buy these, I don't know if, I guess they're leather, but they are suits that have electric wiring inside.
Like
That will heat you up. So if you're riding
Oh,
in
yeah,
the
yeah.
winter and the wind chill would be, negative, I don't know, 20, whatever it would be if you were zipping at 60 miles an hour, that it heats up your suit while you're wearing it. Maybe I could get that suit and then shove the burrito tacos like into my trousers or like sleeves or something.
Do you know why I support this? Because you are dangerously close to being a biohacker, man. This is going to be incredible.
That might be biohacking.
It's close. I mean, remember when like tech clothing was on the table? I watch a lot of Shark Tank. Shout out to the Mavs. But there were people pushing smart clothes, especially for snowboarders or whatever. Especially runners, to monitor your heart rate, all this stuff. You put on a tee and it does all that stuff. It never really caught on, but if we introduce delicious tacos to it with a slightly tart but very savory broth, we might be onto something.
When you started talking about tech clothing, I immediately was going back towards that late 90s trend.
Hells yeah, I know where you're going.
When every kind of luxury menswear brand decided to come out with like their hip hop version, which included like reflective stripes and was called Sport or Tech.
Love it.
Like Nautica Tech, Polo Sport, Tommy Hilfiger, maybe also Sport.
Yeah, it was all that DuPont stuff, like that reflective, cool material, and we were fully in the throes of Missy Elliott mania. That was an awesome era. Oh, Hype Williams, yeah.
No, all that stuff was very cool. It really was based on reflective tape.
I loved it.
And huge logos, enormous logos, which are right in the Andrew Kuo wheelhouse.
This is make it bigger and better, Ben.
Yeah, now that I think about it, it was kind of Hood by Air's influence. Or Hood by Air was kind of influenced by that a bit, I think.
1,000%. Where's the Hood by Air comeback? Remember a year ago now, Shane announced that he was bringing it back.
I've seen people wearing it over the last year, but I wonder if it's in a nostalgic way for like 8 years ago or 7 years ago, or if it's new, an actual new line. I don't know, but I have seen it more again since it faded away over the last like 5 years or whatever.
Huge fan of that stuff. Hard for me to wear because I'm not tall and skinny, but big fan of that
Big
moment.
fan of Shane. Shane's awesome.
Yeah, I used to DJ with him a lot. I told you this story. He was just so over it. By the end, he was just playing Oasis on like -10, just being like, I just want a cocktail, man. I'm like, yeah, me too, man. Oh, speaking of merch, though, does the cookies, do the interns have something to announce?
Oh, yeah. Bullies 2021, baby. They're back and they're bullying.
Has the drip dropped?
The drip has dropped. And if you are listening to this, you are aware of that because it was for our sweet, beloved Patreon subscribers first. It's crazy how it just keeps happening.
And it dropped this morning as we're recording, and they're going fast. We love this design this year. Your boy, Tyrese Maxey makes an appearance for the first time.
Is that who it is? I couldn't tell.
It's obviously Tyrese Maxey.
I'm joking. It's definitely a member of a basketball team.
If there was a sharpshooting brother out there, brother of another sharpshooter, and if he looked like he would be a bully of some sort, he might be on a t-shirt, but we'll never know.
Someone who might like throwing in some floaters on occasion.
Yeah.
Anyway, yes, Bullies 2021 is out for Patreon subscribers, and it will be out for the general public shortly.
There's two damn MVP candidates on there, man. Come on.
Oh, and also, we would be remiss to neglect that there are two versions of the back. There is
What?
the GM version,
Oh,
and
what?
that's a long sleeve, and the coach version, which is a short sleeve, and they have different backs. So get both.
Coaching
Splurge,
matters.
live a little.
Coaching matters. Yeah. Yeah, good stuff, man. We'll be ready for everybody, not only our Patreon subscribers, in a day or two, depending on when you listen to this.
Yes, so they are leading the Eastern Conference, this team that they're depicting, perhaps, maybe.
We're jumping the gun, though. This is some basketball talk.
Not yet. Wait, wasn't I talking about how I wanted to order things in bulk?
Yeah, what'd you get?
I haven't really started doing it yet. It's more, I kind of want to get like 3 pounds of Malden salt at a time.
That is okay. So, what can you actually get in bulk in New York City? Me and you don't live in these ginormous houses. We have a modest New York City kitchen, no pantry to speak of, no garage, no. I've always wanted a second
freezer.
You know where my heart lies, in that second freezer.
Yes.
But what can you get that wouldn't turn, or you just wouldn't be eating taco meat for the next 2 weeks?
What about, say, 56 pounds of carrots?
Yo, I got one of those by mistake. I ordered like one thing of carrots, and it was like $6. $6 worth of regular ass non-organic whatever carrots is a lot of carrots.
See, I was thinking about this because I would say as of like last April, when people were trying to figure out how they were going to get groceries, you had various companies that typically only service restaurants or supermarkets or corner stores, typically not for individual customers, shifted their business model a little bit because food supply chains were tough for everyone. So
That sucks.
like Natura was one that I used a bit, and it's very expensive, but incredibly good produce, like beautiful stuff, but it's really overpriced. But they're ones that typically would only go to like very high-end restaurants, and it was exceptionally good seasonal local produce.
Yeah, I noticed that. I do all my shopping like near it with my Korean grocer, who I like so much. I see her every day almost, and I noticed, I buy these blueberries and blackberries. Recently, there have been limited edition blueberries and blackberries, and they
Cop that.
they look so good. They're bigger, and on the label, it's just like bigger, plumper, sweetest batch. And I'm like, they sure are, man. And they cost double. So a container goes from like $10 to $14. And I'm like, too rich for my cheap ass blood. But, well,
I got some bad news for you about Driscoll's.
are they Trump related?
I think they're pretty bad.
Oh, okay. I mean,
People have to look it up. There was literally a boycott Driscoll's movement like 3 or 4 years ago. I don't know if it's still going on about their treatment of workers. So I've been boycotting. I faithfully boycott.
so I didn't buy these, so I'm safe there. But I noticed.
You knew morally. You sensed a conundrum.
Yeah. So I showed my friend who runs a restaurant, Pies and Thighs. Like she Cookies Hoops classic supporter, the best chicken biscuits in town and donuts. She was like, not only are those incredible, but they might usually go to like restaurants. And I never even thought about that. Like the effects of the supply chain kind of altering and finding different paths, like, I don't know, a river, it maybe gets us, me and you, not professionals in that world, like
layman, if you will.
Yeah, access to some primo shit.
Access to the sweet, plump taste of amorality.
We're not the morality police with blueberries here.
Excuse me? Speak for yourself, King.
I mean, half of us love to be cops, blueberry cops. But
just saying, have not heard great things about Driscoll's.
Let's say you were a berry cop. Oh, let's say you were not a berry cop, let's say. Do you think... there's no take here. It's just the fact that there has to be an ending point for this stuff to end up at, and we're just seeing the effects of the supply chain changing, right?
Yeah. I mean, I saw Baldor. I was looking at their website, and I've seen their trucks. They're all over the city, usually going to like smaller grocery stores. But they have like Murray's cheeses, but you just got to buy them by the pound. I'm like, oh, I gotta kind of go half with people on that.
I know. My fridge is not good. Okay, have any of your friends dropped off meals to you lately?
No.
Not even friend of the pod, Rich Zerbo, who's famous for doing that?
He has in the past, just not this week or in like the last month or so. But shout out to friend of the pod, Richard Zerbo, who will drop off like a good sandwich from a New Jersey roast beef place. A true king.
Hells yeah. I've been realizing a bunch of my friends have been like, I have nothing to do. If I make a dinner for you, will you accept it? I'm like, sure. It's kind of amazing. Like a bunch of my friends have done that. It's really sweet. I don't know.
Are you planning on returning the favor?
In a different way, not with food. Not with food.
Doesn't sound like it.
I just don't think I want to subject. I have this weird thing with food, right? If someone gives me something because they're kind and generous, I love it. But if it's not something I want, like I have a finite number of meals left in my life. Like I don't like quinoa. I really appreciate if someone makes me that. No one has made me that. This is hypothetical. That would take away a delicious meal away from my tally. So, but I would eat it out of obligation. I think in these terms, no doubt.
Do you really approach meals with this gravity?
Not in terms of life or death, but being like,
Because I've certainly seen you show up at the bar with like 4 slices of pizza
that is like
at the bar.
That's
Is
like
that,
the best
are you
part
like,
of my day. Yeah. Well, I
I was like,
love.
I was like, did you actually do the math? And you're like, here it is, 3 slices of pizza, bringing them into the bar.
I mean,
I'll do it. This is meal worthy.
oh my God, yes. Especially when that pizza is Scar's Pizza or Williamsburg Pizza. I mean, if it's bad pizza, I'll be bummed. Yeah.
You're Elaine Bennis with the sponge.
Yep. Is it Scars worthy? I think I'm there. I'm putty. Am I putty in this situation? But anyway, there's 3 times in the day that I really get to enjoy my day, and that is when I'm eating or not eating pizza. And if you show me like an ancient grain, there's some calculus there. I'm like, do I want to spend one of my 3 moments on ancient grain?
And also, you deserve to know if each ancient grain is more ancient than the last.
How would I be able to tell how ancient they are? Would they say things like, take that corner 3,
Get your ass in the paint.
get your ass to the paint, throw it down, big man?
Yeah, need a true point guard.
Yep. Well, anyway.
So I have another question for you.
Yeah,
I saw you diddling around on Twitter.
as I do.
Yeah, straight diddling. You were making some making some statements about gallery spaces in New York.
Oh,
I'm not familiar with the current state of art in New York City on the level that you are. What were
It's
you
a hot
talking
note.
about? Something was on your mind, and I want to find out what it was.
so a well-known critic who I love so much, and he throws out many hot takes, and I love that. I love that vibe. And today, the topic of discussion was there's all these empty spaces in financial areas or office spaces that were meant to house businesses and now are just looking for people just to pay any rent on them. And the young artists or people in the art world who have the energy should take these places while the going's good, lock down, a year or 2 and do their thing, because this is the universe telling us that there's an opportunity. And I read that, and I'm not a young art person anymore, but that sounds like a really quick way to get into a lot of frustration and debt. And I started thinking about what like older generations want for younger generations, and a lot of it's like what we missed out on. Like, oh, I wish I ran a gallery. I do. I wish back when I had energy, I ran a little artist space and showed my friends work more. But that was a long ass time ago, and artists and everybody, musicians, writers, have advantages now that we didn't have 10 years ago, and they should really lean into those.
I guess my question would be, do you think that valuing physical gallery spaces is something of a prior generation they want their version of New York City and the art world to include all these small, interesting, up-and-coming, youth-based gallery spot, that's their version of a thriving New York City, and that may not be the case for how that world will exist in New York City right now?
Yeah, I think it's changing. I think that's what I mean by it's a projection of what we wanted. I don't think New York back is necessarily about small artist-run spaces. It's about, in my opinion, sustainability and keeping people here. So going into like a long lease, hey, if you have the money, and this is a personnel issue, if you have a need for a space, go for it. If you don't have a need for a space, don't create a need for it. Like, do you, right?
I mean, I do think there's an opportunity for physical spaces that maybe were driven out because of costs previously.
Yep.
So it could be a chicken and the egg thing, right? To say, well, younger artists don't need spaces because it's evolved in a way that was dictated by costs that were unapproachable previously. But if those costs change, maybe
Calculus
the reality changes of not needing art spaces. Oh, we can have them again, so let's go back to them existing. It's more like, did we move away from physical things whether it's nightlife or it's art spaces or anything that falls under those categories in a place where rent plays such a huge role in deciding and determining what gets built and what physically is created. So, like, I think from a nightlight standpoint, like, whoa, if there's all these spaces that were huge restaurants or, I don't know, office or anything that are vacant now, there's a real opportunity for, say, next fall, for there to be a resurgence in Manhattan, nightlife areas where that could not have occurred at the current rates of rent before COVID.
Yeah, and I think for nightlife and for music, it's different than art. Yeah, the DJ D Nice model doesn't necessarily get me going. If like
I don't think that gets anybody going who actually likes going out
or likes music, because like so much of music is about being with other people and enjoying it, right? In my opinion, I don't know. There's something nice about raving by yourself, staring out a window at 7 a.m. at snow. But yeah, I think it helps nightlife a bit. But yo, man, all of our friends who did this kind of thing when they had opportunities to got so burnt out and are just like shells of themselves. I kind of want to be like, thank you. Oh my God, you guys do this for us. It's incredible, but save yourself.
I mean, I wonder if we will have this several years of just intense partying and nightlife because people have been hiding out for so long. I think we will. And I know that may be overly optimistic, and there are certainly people who will be scarred by this time and will have trouble with large groups, and hopefully they'll
might not have the money.
Yeah, again, but I think money will actually be less important in what I'm talking about, where it's young people who didn't have any money anyway, who are hanging out in the park, and they were hanging out, on people's roofs, and I just think we'll have a lot of people really dying to be active after this amount of time in like seclusion. But I think there will be people who really don't recalibrate.
Yeah, it's tough. Like how to incentivize people to do things like we want, right? Like I want there to be an awesome weekly dance party. Like, do I want to do it anymore? Hells no.
Right.
No, that killed me. I did one for like 3 or 4 years. It just like it wasn't good. But
yeah, I'm not even suggesting that I personally want to be out until 6 a.m. I just want it to exist.
Yeah, and the people who did China Chalet was interesting, right? Because they weren't really out the bottom line. There was a lease held by a restaurant, and whether the legality of it was dubious, I think they had an agreement that they could like serve drinks late into the night and have a big dance party in the banquet hall. But like there's money that has to be spent there, and even the base infrastructure of a restaurant like China Chalet propping up one of the best night spots in New York in the last decade had to have happened, right? So I mean, maybe I'm being too pessimistic, but it starts with like an optimistic view, which is like I think we should figure out the most comfortable way to do this, and maybe not committing to the idea of space is necessarily the answer.
That could be. I don't know. Again, my main perspective on it is, I guess, just that water will find its natural resting place. That what we viewed as being necessity or a non-necessity was based on economics in New York City that may change for a few years.
And yeah, I agree with that. And to your point, water does find its level, and I think it's amazing how smart people who have been through this are like, you can do more. Your water level is not what you think it is, but sometimes, like Kristaps Porzingis, this is your water level, and it's hard to not be yourself.
Right, like if there are huge spaces that are unoccupied, there will be galleries and parties in them. That's
Hopefully.
kind of that's kind of where I'm at. Like, not all of them, but
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
will exist, and
Yeah.
if those things don't make sense financially, then they won't.
Yeah, and I think that's already happening. Like, shout out to like our buddies who started a gallery during all of this. They took a space on Broadway. It's called Broadway Gallery, and they just went for it.
Do you know any artists that are showing there?
Not personally, but I heard a solo raver may be having a show there soon.
When's this? Is this announced yet?
It's in April, but I'm ready. Let's do this.
What?
But you know,
Did
like,
you just break Art World News?
no, it's on the
Oh,
it's on this
Anyway.
thing called Instagram. But
Yawn.
yeah. Did we? So this makes me think it's, when this pandemic started, or the larger pandemic when Trump became president. A lot of the same people would say, like, now might be the time where all these flowers bloom and we get the artwork in response to this tyrannical idea that will change our lives, that will make us whole. Did we get that in the last 4 years? Have we ever gotten that?
I was going to say, isn't part of that nostalgia where, 15, 20 years later, people, I don't know, maybe I don't think we got it though. I'm just thinking about music or movies. Was there anything that was like definitive of the Trump era?
It's weird. When I started thinking about it, of course the examples would be an artist like Bob Dylan,
Sure,
Woodstock, and then Nirvana is always an example, and those were definitely game changers. The first thing I thought of when I did some thinking was Moonlight. I thought that was like a really influential thing. And
Did that come out before Trump?
I mean, let's check.
It was definitely made before Trump, right?
2016.
So it's not
Made
that.
before, yeah, maybe not that. I can't really tell, but it does exist, right? Because to somebody out there, like, I didn't really love Nevermind, truth be told. I had it. I knew all the songs. I saw Nirvana play like 3 times. It wasn't my favorite album. That, like, I like Sonic Youth stuff. I like Dirty better than Nevermind. I like Dinosaur Jr. better than Nevermind. So, like, but that was an album that changed the calculus, right? DGC Records, and then all of a sudden DGC took a chance on Sonic Youth, and whatever, Warner Brothers signed Dinosaur. But are we talking influence or success?
Well, interestingly, I view the main cultural upheaval of the Trump era, in my opinion, was really like the BLM street protests. I viewed that just as
That's
more
fair.
significant than like the Pussy Hat marches. Not to say that other people didn't view them differently. Just to me, that was
Or
the
Occupy
signature,
Wall Street?
which was pre-Trump though.
Oh, okay, all right, yeah.
I'm saying of the last 4 years, to me, the definitive part was like BLM, like happening during a pandemic, largest nationwide, public protests, maybe I think in the nation's history. Just, it was exceptionally huge and powerful and everywhere. And obviously the music that was associated with that was like, at least in my experience, was Meek Mill's Dreams and Nightmares and NWA's Fuck the Police, which
Ancient.
interestingly are not even new songs.
Yeah.
I mean, you might have heard some Pop Smoke in the mix, but generally the two songs that were the soundtracks to it, one is from 1988 or whatever,
Yeah.
Fuck the Police came out, and the other was from 7 years ago or something.
Yeah. And yeah, you're getting to something that I love to think about, and that is things like music and ball players and paintings are like finite resources in terms of movements. And rock may be ended, and we still get good rock music, but it may have ended. Rap music may have ended, and we don't it's not the same thing anymore. So, where we used to argue about Death Row versus Bad Boy, now it's like, are you Republican or Democrat? And instead of going to a Biggie concert, we go and protest. And it is a different form of culture, and it has a different message and different weight, and it's hard to equate the two because this stuff feels like life and death.
It's an interesting mix of immediate and non-immediate when you tie in our ability to access information, music, art, movies from any time till now. When I think about the quarantine era, I'm like, Sopranos deeply tied in because people needed hours and hours to kill, so everyone rewatched The Sopranos.
I rewatched that twice.
That's what I'm saying. The Sopranos are culturally tied to quarantine and COVID lockdown, despite coming out 20 years ago.
Yeah, and I love like a delayed reaction, like Fleetwood Mac, right? Like that song has been kind of an anthem because of that video this year or last year, and it kind of restructured the way they're thinking about how artists release their music and get paid and all that. And that song came out a lifetime ago. I love that stuff.
But that's like the perfect example too.
Yeah.
That our cultural influences and what sort of spikes up and become like the talking point, GameStop, like they are. It's not that they're arbitrary; they're just unmoored from immediacy in some ways.
Mm-hmm. Which is interesting because then I want to connect that with the idea of like classic rock and rockism and what classic rap may be, and mining all these things, because Nirvana wasn't a new thing, even though I think we're inclined to say it was. It was just a version of an old thing, right? Like punk had been around forever, and loud guitars had been around way before that. That vibe was already sussed. I mean,
but they added
sussed
flannel.
out. I loved grunge, man. You cannot catch me talking shit about grunge. Screaming trees, baby. But I love this idea because what else do we have to think about? But like maybe we didn't get the blood on the tracks, but we got BLM and the protests, and maybe that's just where we're at. It's never what we think. It's hard to predict this thing, right? And
I'm almost saying that dreams and nightmares, whenever I hear it, will be associated with those protests. And so will Fuck the Police. They just happened to come out 25 years prior and whatever, 7 or 10 years before. But they were still part of that cultural moment. I think that's fascinating and very cool.
Yeah. Well, it's like torn jeans, right? You mentioned flannel, but like, do chain wallets, what credit do Doc Martens get? And was it the flannel or was it tying the flannel around the waist? So what is the pillar of the thing and what orbits it? Right? I don't know.
I mean, this idea of influence and is repetition influence or is it something new itself?
It's different in every case, right?
Who experiences it.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about years ago, not that long ago, but I went to see Joey Badass perform. He had just had like one song out, maybe 2 songs out. And
Sounds like a fun night.
He had a show at Wetlands, and I think Vashti was like helping manage him, or at least was doing something like around the show. So I went to go check it out. And the crowd was all a mix of like people who were in their 30s and 40s who liked that he was rapping over 90s style production, and a bunch of 16-year-old kids who were excited to see another 16-year-old kid that they probably knew from high school or just were friends with, and were, going nuts and dancing around as he was rapping over, like literally instrumentals from like, I don't know,
sure,
the Seas of Blue Cheese or whatever the fuck that was.
Yeah.
But the point is, 16-year-olds are experiencing this as new music, but people who are our age are viewing it as a throwback, as nostalgic, as deeply indebted to music from 25 years ago.
I mean, when you listen to Smells Like Teen Spirit now, I'm like, drums? Guitar? Is that a bass guitar? Like, what are we doing? That is not, like, auto-tuned at all.
Chloe, badass.
I have not picked up the 90s Fat Beats nostalgia bug at all. I just, like, it doesn't work for me. And I used to hang out at a Christmas bar, and they used to have so many 90s DJs like playing these songs. Like when Prodigy died, man, I listened to so much Mobb Deep by accident. It was just insane. And I have no nostalgia for that stuff.
I still listen to a lot of Mobb Deep. That's one of the few groups from the 90s. I listen to early 2000s. I listen to a lot of Mobb, but usually only when driving. I like driving around listening to like Prodigy cuts.
I love that. So what? Infamous #1?
There's a couple songs that really work.
Yeah.
They're not even hits. Mm-hmm. They're deeper cuts that work in the car.
Damn, you're just bumping Mobb Deep on your way to pick up some beer tacos, man. I fucking love this.
The song Adrenaline.
Yeah, I know.
All the time. That one constantly.
Wow. So you're a hype driver. Like you like to roll.
Not always. Bit. It depends on how I'm getting there. Like if people have to get out of my way.
Oh wow.
Adrenaline's going on. If I'm cruising, a little Sunday driving. Oh, jazz.
Wait, what? You listen to jazz music? Are we talking like Brubeck or Miles Davis, or like deeper cuts like Lounge Lizards? What are you doing? What's the jazz vibe?
Hold on, let me tell you exactly what I've been listening to jazz-wise. My jazz list.
Oh wow.
Jazz list: Marion Brown, "Sweet Flying Earth," Don Cherry, Pharoah Sanders. That's my recent jazz playlist.
Is there a genre called dad jazz?
Would this fall into it? I don't know. Benny Maupin, "The Jewel and the Lotus."
All right, yeah, these are not like your stereotypical like Coltrane stuff.
No, come on.
Yeah,
I'm driving, man. It's a specific kind of driving jazz.
Well, I shouldn't talk because I just listen to AM radio and like NPR, so I don't drive, first of all, but if I had to.
I have been into. I like Griselda guys though. They're cool.
Yeah, you've been pushing these guys for the last few.
Yeah, that's the only like throwback style rap that I'm into. I will say it took a minute. I viewed them as derivative for a long time, and then I kind of just succumbed to it and decided that I dug it because it's good. It's like it's samples and guys rapping about drugs over it. Like, cool.
Yeah,
like this is stuff that we've listened to for years, and at least I haven't heard this one before.
Yeah. I mean, to rewind a little bit, was the last 4 years so emotionally draining and almost, I mean, we spent a year of Trump's presidency in coronavirus zone. Did it feel like the stakes were so high that music felt a little frivolous? And no one came out with like a protest version of Bon Iver, right? Like there was no rallying artwork. It was just all of us trying to keep up.
And also, there was so much art too.
I agree.
There was so much of it. I mean, if you walked around New York City at any point, especially after things got boarded up, there was just art everywhere. We saw, anti-Trump murals. Like we saw anti-Trump sculptures, like really going back to day one, like right when he first got elected. So, how many inflated Trumps with like an ass for a face do we really need to see? Like it was just a constant stream of
visual
cartoons
stuff
of Trump that falls under that same category that comedians complained about with Trump. It's like, you can't be more horrifying or funny or disturbed than the real thing.
Yeah. And like even watching the election night play out, like the Trump supporters gathering at election polling places, singing YMCA, and me being the douche I am is like, that's an old jam. Like, try listening to some new songs, mega chuds, you know? Like, it's like YMCA. I mean, that's funny in itself because of the origins of that song, but like that is gonna be the song you pick. You guys don't have like a new like rallying cry to adapt to your movement?
There was that one clip of MAGA supporters dancing to like Rage Against the Machine. I'm just like, perfect. That's
I love
all
it.
I needed.
I love
Perfect.
it. I love it. And were they also at Madison Square Garden enforcing the rim? Wow, my worlds are really colliding.
Speaking of basketball, the topic before of influence was kind of on my mind because ESPN, the worldwide leader, as it's called, they I don't know if they put up an article or a post, or they just sort of said it in a tweet. I don't know.
Threw some chum out into the water.
Threw some chum, and I went after it. They said the most influential players in the last 30 years. And their list was Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, and Stephen Curry.
First of all, I love this. This is bait, and we take it because this is super fun.
Yeah,
but
why not?
what a fucked up list.
I got my opinions on it. What do you think, Quo? Let me precurse this by saying...
Yeah, I don't want to walk over your takes.
No, you don't have to. I'm saying you can eliminate whoever you want from this list. You don't even need 4.
Right.
Because
like
4 is their number. 4? Who says there's 4?
Who's your top 10, top 4 most influential players, right? I immediately, I think MJ, whatever. LeBron, maybe off the court, he gets it. I wouldn't have Curry or Kobe in there, even though they're wonderful players. Not because he was better than anybody. I think you have to mention the idea of the stretch 4, and to me, the first person I think of is Dirk Nowitzki or even Rasheed Wallace. As a player who transformed the way we thought about that position and was successful enough to have influence. So, and that gets to the question you brought up. What is influence? Is it influence or how good someone is?
Right. So my list was more like yours, but I just thought it was 3. To me, you had 3 pillars of influence over the last 30 years. Mm-hmm. And it almost goes in a decade-like fashion, where it's like MJ, Allen Iverson, LeBron James. And to me, they kind of represent almost like this tripod of sports stardom. And they're different but related. And to me, that's the group. Like, there isn't a 4th one that I would throw into that mix. And, of course, I got a lot of responses from Curry fans who were like a very like Mr. Me Too fan group. I mean, I understand that they're desperate. They're guys, obviously the best shooter of all time.
I love Steph Curry. Yeah.
I know, again, best shooter of all time.
Yeah.
Singularly incredible player. Yeah. But like his place in history, as we discussed a couple weeks ago, is not necessarily defined. His own disinterest in creating a legacy makes it very spongy about where he falls in all these like all-time hierarchies. Yeah. So they were like, are you kidding? Where is Steph Curry? He changed the game. And again, I don't want to reiterate too much from a few weeks ago. He did not. That's not true.
He's just awesome. He's just really, really great. But even in the interviews when he passed Reggie Miller, even to his own admission, he was like, you did it before me. I just passed you. We're doing the same thing, buddy. Shout out to your family, I mean,
Curry, again, best shooter of all time. Did he accelerate an interest in threes? Did he generate interest in taking extra long ones or taking them off the bounce? Sure, yeah. No doubt. Great player, and he made teams adjust around the league to his singular talent in the way that great players always do.
Yeah, he's just very good. Yeah.
I just think in terms of influence, I think it has to be a combination of on-court and off-court. And you have to be great, of course.
Yeah.
But Curry has no footprint socially, culturally, whatsoever. None. Zero.
Yeah. He has a signature move, but that's not quite enough. Like the step back 3 is influential, no doubt. But it is not enough to put him on this list, I don't think.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. Is he influential? Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But we're talking about the like the gods, the big three, like MJ, AI, and Kobe. To me, those guys, like their impact on not only the court but also what they represented, how they altered sort of the shape of the sport, how it was perceived. To me, that just dwarfs really anybody else.
And it's your three is interesting, right? Because MJ obviously on the court and off the court with branding and being a businessman. Man, I'm a businessman, or whatever. LeBron James, same thing. Excellent player on the court and changed the way we thought about player empowerment and the way players can shape their own story. 1,000%. AI, I kind of want to push back against. I like him on this list. I'm just trying to make radio here, baby. But
well, before we get into AI, let me say one other thing about LeBron that I think does really matter. It's like, is he important as the greatest player of all time? Yes. But as you said before, is this just a list of the greatest? Is that all we're doing? And I don't think we are. So, because no one's talking about Tim Duncan here.
No, who's awesome. Shaq should have consideration here, but
I agree. So, I mean, obviously these guys are all incredible.
Yeah.
But for me, LeBron, I think one, you have the way that he shifted our perception of positions, and that if you look around the league and you see guys like Jokic and Doncic and Harden, Ben Simmons, and Draymond Green, the idea that you could be a scorer / distributor from the power forward position, that has become the dominating sort of star post LeBron. And I really do attribute it to him. Prior to him, that didn't exist. Like the distributing, scoring, like 6'8" guy who brought the ball up the court and just ran everything.
That was always my defense for those stupid LeBron MJ debates that we shouldn't have. Well, they're always fun. Let's have them again. But it is what you say. LeBron, we'd never seen a player like LeBron who can guard and play all 5 positions. And I want to put Draymond Green on this list somehow, but LeBron kind of like devours what Draymond is, because his versatility and his positionless kind of makeup is dwarfed by his just excellence, right? He's just like so good. We forget that he's just like a honey badger on the court, just doing every single thing.
Yeah, I don't view Doncic as being able to exist in a world without LeBron in some ways.
Yep.
I don't know how that would exactly work. It's not like a time machine thing. I just view him completely in the same lineage that LeBron sort of established for all of us. And LeBron was Doncic's favorite player.
Yeah.
As a kid. And it's obvious.
Yes.
You can tell. And also, LeBron's ushering in of the era of player empowerment. That's certainly him in a way that's very different from how Michael Jordan or Allen Iverson or Tim Duncan or any of these other legends or titans of the sport. I mean, he really did shift that by having clutch and, manipulating other teams' rosters, arguably creating super teams. I just think LeBron to me has to be on this list.
When we talk about trades and the drama behind a James Harden move or super teams, this is all kind of something that LeBron gave to us.
Yeah. Whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
You don't have to enjoy player autonomy in the way that maybe I or you do. But you got to blame LeBron for it then.
Yeah, right. Yes. And so I kind of want to push back on this AI thing just to pick your brain. On the court, off the court, definitely. I think off the court, in terms of culture, in terms of looking racism right in the eye, in terms of making this league a better place for the players after him, Allen Iverson stands alone, I think. And I forget someone
and his story also just has such significance and power when tied to those racial dynamics. The fact that he was in prison for a riot in which like white kids called him and his friends the N-words and no white kids were arrested, like just the entire story of Iverson builds to what he represented in a way that really I can't say about anyone else.
Yeah, it exposed the way our lives are broken, or maybe our DNA is faulty in that case, and it exposed like the the fraudulent NCAA system, right? Like the recruiting, the way kids get recruited, the way universities conduct business, and then kind of like if you just scratch a little bit how they make money and what a young player in high school like Allen Iverson represented to these schools and then didn't represent, right? And
yeah, I think that's true. And also Iverson, at the era when he arrived, coincided with hip hop becoming the like predominant culture of America, and those things at the same time. I think it's just so undeniable, and like how big of a deal he was, like culturally.
absolutely, and but now I want to talk about on the court stuff.
And I got an answer for that too, buddy.
I know he's incredible, and he is an outlier. He has done so many unique things that he kind of brought to the table, but you can't have him and MJ on the same list.
Here's what I would say that Allen Iverson's on-court impact. So there's a lot of vowels there. I think when we talk about LeBron and this idea of the scorer distributor as a bigger guy who does all these things and this jack of all trades, guards all 5 positions, I think Iverson really did create the archetype for the scoring distributing guard. And that's why I think someone like Curry can't really go on this list, because Iverson invented that position.
But did Jordan not invent that too?
Jordan really wasn't a distributor like that. I know he did pass.
Yeah. He wasn't prolific in that way.
But remember, they had point guards who would bring the ball up, and that era was still very much based on segmenting positions. Jordan is a scorer. Scottie Pippen is the point forward. Craig Hodges is a point guard.
But wasn't Iverson distinctly a point guard? He was a 2 sometimes as well. Your boy Eric Snow.
Well, this is kind of what I'm getting at, was that there was this debate about whether he was a point guard or he was an off guard, and Larry Brown put him off ball. But like, really, Iverson was that guy who was the first guard to like lead the league in scoring, who was also kind of your point guard. And part of that was his size. But
yeah.
I feel like that position that we saw later that Curry or Westbrook or Harden inhabited really was first through Allen Iverson.
See, I give that to the Jordan Bulls, because Jordan did both of those things, right? Like, he had BJ Armstrong, but a lot of times in games he'd be the one. And then when they needed Craig Hodges or anyone else, like the guard situation in those Chicago Bulls, both eras, kind of was fluid, right?
I mean, it's hard to think of Jordan running point in the same way as, I don't know, like a Harden, right? But it's easy to think of Iverson running it in that way.
But Jordan,
like for me, it's difficult to think of Jordan bringing the ball up the court and then running pick and rolls for like Jordan to kick the ball to the wings. That just doesn't feel like MJ to me. I could be wrong. I mean, he had that skill set. He was a good passer.
Yeah, I thought, MJ was such a good scorer, and he had that sociopath thing, But I think he did enough of that passing to kind of make Iverson on this list on the court a little bit redundant.
See, I mean, I disagree on that, but I get it.
Yeah. I mean, he belongs on this list. I'm just saying, like, there's no perfect list, Ben.
I mean, MJ did average like 8 assists one year. I'm not saying he couldn't pass.
So
I just mean
career, it was 6.2 versus 5.3. Career is very noisy. Like, their best seasons will all fluctuate, but they're kind of in the same ballpark. That's 1 assist, right?
I mean, also in these ways, of course, Iverson was hugely influenced by MJ. And of course, LeBron was influenced by both of them. They were like his favorite players.
Mm-hmm. And Magic Johnson,
So this is where I want to get to Kobe. Because why wouldn't Kobe be on this list, right? I mean, Kobe Bryant, he is an icon. He won all these championships. He has scored all these points. He played in Los Angeles. He's a hero.
Favorite player of all these in the next generation, for sure.
Everyone, he tragically died in a helicopter accident. His name is written on everybody's shoes. Like, Mamba mentality is a thing.
Yo, Gordon Hayward.
Does he belong on this list?
All respect to the wonderful basketball players that do maybe garner consideration. He does not, in my opinion. Only because there's a redundancy there. However you talk about Kobe, Michael Jordan kind of encompasses that. And just because of timing, chicken or the egg, whatever, Jordan came before, and Jordan had more success. So I think if you want to put Jordan on this list, and I'm down if you don't, but if you do, you cannot put Kobe Bryant as well.
So I've two thoughts on Kobe, or I could go both ways on this idea, because his lineage is 100% Jordan. He is a Jordan originalist.
Yeah,
like
their moves are the same.
100%. Like, he plays the same, he thinks the same, he's branded the same. Everything is Jordan. And in some ways, that's why Jordan always seemed to prefer Kobe to LeBron, because Jordan knew that LeBron was a threat, but Kobe could never be as good as him because he was a simulacrum. On the other hand, Jordan's prime was 20 plus years ago.
Yep.
20 plus, 25 years ago. So if you are someone who does not have any recognition whatsoever of experiencing Michael Jordan as a player, then does Kobe's carrying of Jordan originalism, like the torchbearer of that idea, make him important by default? Like, does he, does his carrying that idea forward of Willie Win guy, like, oh, he just wants it more? If Kobe hadn't done that, would we have lost Jordan? And does therefore Kobe become on this list as influential because he carried that dogma to a new generation?
And before I kind of respond to that, do you think Kobe changed the Jordan originalist prototype? Do you think he added something to it?
Not really.
And to that, I agree, and I would say he didn't do enough to garner. And I know I like what you're thinking here. Is he that postmodern link to our past that is as essential as the modernist kind of origin of it? But Kobe didn't do enough. He's just modernist too, more modernism, right?
Yeah, it's hard to say. I think he is influential. Does he go in this top 3? Probably not, because he doesn't really represent anyone.
Yo, Kobe's on the outside of all of these lists. He's right there. And I don't mean to be sound like a Kobe hater. But all these top lists, he deserves mention, but he kind of doesn't really enter as easily as I thought.
And also, I think it's worth mentioning in regards to both Kobe and Curry, they had incredibly different approaches to carving out a legacy. Curry kind of just letting it fly. It couldn't be me.
Yeah.
And Kobe was the exact opposite. He was deeply entrenched in the myth-making of Kobe Bryant. But because he tied it so thoroughly to his idea of what greatness comprised of, which was Michael Jordan, he almost didn't create a figure of his own. And both these guys kind of suffer from that legacy making. One was too much, and one did it too little. But I don't know. It's weird.
And and a lot of this is based off of size, which is a talent. And Kobe's size kind of dictated this story, right? And if he was a bit taller, LeBron is big, and the criticism sometimes I hear of LeBron haters would be well, if Jordan had that body, he would just be a better LeBron, therefore Jordan's a better player. And I don't agree with that, because the way both these players are built is a talent that you can't teach. But
and I think that kind of works in Iverson's favor when we talk about differentiating him from MJ, is that MJ was sized like a shooting guard, and Allen Iverson was 6 feet tall and much closer to what we view as a quote point guard. And going back and looking at those years leading into Allen Iverson, the only guy who was really considered a point guard who scored a ton and passed a lot, you had Peyton, but Peyton never came close to leading the NBA in scoring for 5 times.
Great player, yeah.
And and Penny Hardaway, who was also another weird fusion player from the 90s. He was another guy that people weren't really sure what position he played. He was a point guard, but he was 6'8".
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's one thing I do think Iverson should get a little bit of credit for, is that he really was like the size of a point guard, and we viewed him in that same category of a Curry or a Westbrook or a Wall, that we kind of view Jordan as like a different like specimen.
I want to accuse this whole debate of having dribble bias. Is this big man erasure? Well, Shaq should be on this list, right?
I mean, LeBron can't really dribble.
Oh, but dribble bias isn't about dribbling, right? It's like our reference point to Michael Jordan. And like, why isn't our reference point Bill Russell? Shaq has to be on this list. Even the way we see Joel Embiid play now, like, I mean, Joel Embiid is an evolution, but like Shaq, the offensive, defensive big man, I don't know, man. Like, he kind of showed the possibilities of that position.
Shaq has a good argument. You can bring in him rapping, and you can bring in him, being an actor, and
Kazam.
The marketing elements, selling candy bars.
The analyst, the critic.
Yeah, I don't think it's that different from MJ in terms of like the marketing angle, but I could see there being an argument there. The only thing is, I think he falls into the lineage of like Wilt Chamberlain, of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, of David Robinson, like the Titans who patrol the paint, like those ideas.
Robinson is underrated. I think we don't mention him enough. He's
Hakeem Olajuwon, like Patrick Ewing. I think Shaq falls into that category from that era of like huge two-way big men. He's kind of the most modern of them because he lasted the longest.
And he was just better, like Curry. He was just better than those guys, I think. Can we reverse engineer this thinking, though? Let's take what the game is now, and can we attribute it to a handful of people? Like, let's say the tenets of modern game are positionless ball, activism, player empowerment. Can we reverse engineer this thing to 3 guys?
I mean,
is it just the list that we've been discussing?
I mean, it's hard for me to change those 3, but I like the idea of there being other categories, like say or other contestant, like maybe a Dirk, right? He was
not the best, but I have him in there, even European wise.
But it's right, an international superstar who was a shooting big man that was reviled by purists for not getting his ass into the paint and for being 7 feet tall and wanting to play on the perimeter. I could see an argument for someone like Dirk.
How about Yao Ming?
I don't know.
Worth a fun discussion, but kind of doesn't make it onto this list, right?
Yao may have really helped the sport's popularity in China.
For sure.
But I don't know what that had in terms of an effect on the game itself. It may have really helped the NBA, and it may change the way that the NBA talks about China.
But it seems so isolated, ironically, from an isolated country. Like, what are the effects of Yao? Like, big money coming from that country.
Yeah.
But then that's kind of it. I think he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame because of his short career with his opening of like this.
And he was still like a 9-time All-Star or something.
He gets it. I love him for many reasons, but I do think of like a way to talk about what the stretch 4 did to what we're seeing now, and to address that in one player, I think is deserved for this list. It's Dirk, right?
I like Dirk for that.
Yeah.
What's interesting about Dirk, though, is that he was not a particularly good defensive player.
No.
And, for all the credit that Dirk does deserve for being great, he didn't rain threes in any particular way. He was just an incredibly good shooter.
Yep.
Like, you go back and look at some of those seasons, we viewed him as, this 3-point shooting, like 7-foot tall German guy. Like, he was kind of just LaMarcus Aldridge, but just way better at shooting.
He was awesome, and
lots of like long twos.
He accumulated a lot of blocks too. But can I just throw out some names just to pick your brain? Vlade Divac.
Fun.
But could we talk about what he is? Like, is Jokic like a transformative player that owes things to like the lineage of Arvydas Sabonis? Like, is it just talent?
Jokic is a great example because he's obviously very young still. He's like mid-20s.
I love him. Yeah.
MVP candidate this season.
He should get it. He's awesome.
Is he too young to even remember Divac and Sabonis, even if their DNA kind of shows up in his game? Like, what's the transmission? Is it just LeBron? Like, did he watch LeBron growing up and say that's how to play basketball?
Yep. Yeah. Is he like Chris Webber was my guy? Like, I doubt it.
Right. He's so young. Like,
Yeah.
Was it Marc Gasol? Like, that would kind of make sense in some ways.
Pau Gasol might be too old for him.
Right. Yeah. It's so weird to figure out where these influences are. I mean, I've mentioned this on Cookies before, but I remember sitting next to Sheck West at a Fashion Week dinner thing and talking about basketball. And he's like, yeah, Kobe's kind of before my time. And I was like,
Yeah.
what the fuck? He's like, he's my favorite player, but he's before my time. I don't really remember, like, prime Kobe. I remember, like, late Kobe, angry old man Kobe. But that's my favorite player.
Well, there was a moment yesterday that thawed my cold blizzard rave heart in the Knicks game where Emmanuel Quickley, MVP, clearly, Rookie of the Year, no doubt, Defensive Player of the Year, yes. He walks on the court and he turns to Lou Williams. Is like, "You're my favorite player, man," and it was incredible. And Lou Williams gave him a quick smile and a little handshake, and I hope they talked after the game. But to me, that set off like all these weird thoughts because like Quickly is like a super religious Christian that I just found out about, and it makes sense why the Knicks really liked him. If you want to talk about the Knicks as a house of worship, and he fits that role, and it was so surprising to me. Surprising for me to know that Lou Williams is one of his favorite players, not because of on the court stuff, but Lou Williams is kind of like my favorite kind of person. It's just like, yeah, I went to get those wings, and all these stories about Lou Williams I find to be like extremely lovable and human and all these things, and not necessarily.
Emmanuel Quickley, as a man of the Bible, believes that you can have multiple wives.
right. Lemon pepper, man. But I was so delighted at that little video because I thought there was such two different kinds of people in my mind who had the same type of games, right? And I was so glad to hear that my new favorite player, Emmanuel Quickley's favorite player, was not like Kobe Bryant or like, as far as we know, but he really loved this player that, I think Lou Williams is a Cookies hero, and it makes sense. And when Emmanuel Quickley's like, "You're my favorite player," I'm like, "Oh, you were a teenager like 5 years ago when Lou Williams was balling out."
It's like Chief Keef is 25 years old.
right.
I grew up on your shit, man.
Yeah, dude. It's like 10 years ago when some kid at some party was like, "I grew up on Animal Collective." I'm like, "What?" I'm like, "Oh, right. You were 15 3 years ago. I forgot,
I mean, I also think, well, your point is great, right? Because players look at guys they admire, and sometimes it makes no sense at all.
Yeah.
Sometimes it makes total sense, and Quickly admiring Lou Williams makes a shit ton of sense.
Absolutely. I love it.
They're both kind of, damp Bucatini guys, little floaters, like skinny dudes who are very quick.
Wandering basins. Just strolling tubs.
Did you have a favorite player growing up that you, in your mind, thought you sort of played like?
Yeah. I actually played a couple years of high school basketball, and Allen Iverson was the guy for me. I channeled whatever I thought I was to Allen Iverson, and
just short kings.
I was just a chucker. Yeah, I picked someone who reminded me of me. That was Allen Iverson, man.
Many people have made this comparison, so I see it.
But he was the shortest guy on the court, so I enjoyed that. He was kind of a little big man, big in performance, small in stature. But I did not play anything close to needless to say,
Yeah, you have to keep explaining how you and Allen Iverson were slightly different on the court.
I was not even the best scrub on my team. I was just on the team. It was just an achievement.
Yeah, for me it was like Lamar Odom. That was the guy that I saw play, and I'm like, can I learn to play like Lamar Odom? Because that's, to me, like, that was what I wanted to be on the basketball court. A guy who could,
and off the court. Let's be honest, man.
and both,
Yeah.
just full life spectrum of Lamar Odom.
The whole package.
How can I be the candy man?
Yeah. Why is Ben eating so much candy? Like, no idea.
He loves Lamar Odom. No, just as a guy who was sort of, tall but not a big guy, who liked to pass and liked to rebound and run and didn't really care about scoring. Like Odom, I'm like, this is it. This is how you're supposed to play basketball as like a mid-sized person. You're supposed to be the Swiss Army knife, like the Renaissance man. You can do all these things, like help your team win. That was always kind of my...
Wait, remind me, are you a lefty?
No, but I go left a lot, so I kind of...
Oh, look at you, Brad. I set you up. That was cool.
I'm a lefty sympathizer.
Wow, that's fucked up.
Like, no, I don't think left-handed people should be like put into camps.
There shouldn't be exclusive stores called leftoriums just for a fraction of our population.
Well, I didn't say that.
But this gets to a point that, like you mentioned to me earlier, like these players, like Lou Williams, IQ. Have you seen some offensive trends this year that have piqued your interest?
I have, Andrew. I have noticed some offensive trends.
At minute 120, let's go.
Well, last week we talked a bit about how so many scorers are just like, they're just so commonplace. There are so many guys who score right now, and I was thinking about that. Like, how are there like 90 guys in the league, who are averaging 18 points per 36 minutes? Like, that's so many guys can score. So I was like, well, are numbers up? And I looked at how this season is shaping out so far. Pretty insane. Because once you think about the fact there was no real training camp, they just kind of started playing the game. That you've had people missing time. You've had whole teams canceling games. You've had players sitting out with, safety protocol. Currently, we're looking at the highest offensive rating in history.
I love it.
The highest effective field goal percentage in history. The highest three-point percentage in history. On the other hand, the lowest offensive rebounding in history, the second lowest free throw rate in history, and the fourth lowest turnovers in history. So, like, absolute offensive explosion. Not a leap from last season, but still growing on these trends. But again, highest offensive rating in history, highest effective field goal percentage, highest three-point percentage, lowest field goals, and lowest offensive rebounds. Got anything to take away from that?
Looks like it's the relegation effect. The Knicks participating in the trends of the NBA. You'll love to see it. But I attribute it's fascinating stuff. Good job by you, Detective Dietrich.
Thank you.
But the first thought I have is I want to look at the personnel and who has played minutes, because these seem like specific skill sets and a specific kind of player. And like the effect James Harden has when he plays half the games in a quarter of an NBA season. Half his available minutes or something, because of trade shenanigans, because of rest. Who knows? I would go into that. Is it a vibe or is it personnel? Are we looking at inventory or are we looking at a feeling?
I can't tell. It's obviously early, so guys with hot starts are going to have stats that look eye-popping and unsustainable, because they probably are. But just looking around at some of the scoring leaders, not to get too dorky with it, but if you look at true shooting percentage, right? 56, 57%, that's around league average. Guys who are stars are 60% true shooting percentage, or like above it. But that's elite. You get above 60, you're elite. And we've seen guys who are well above it in the past. Guys like Durant and Curry, real incredible stars, or guys who are specialists. The guys like
I was going to say
Mitch Robinson or Nerlens, lob catching dunkers, or 3-point shooters, Kyle Korver type guys.
And let's weird Wayne Ellington having an effect on this trend too. Seth Curry and Wayne Ellington are moving that needle, right?
That's true, but I was also going to say, looking at guys, there are so many dudes like Embiid or I think Kawhi Leonard, guys in like the high 60s, almost 70% true shooting. And maybe those will drop down, but we're seeing some just offensive explosions that are just really abnormal. Kevin Durant this year is in that same mix again. Like just some stunning efficiency that I'm with you. Is this a personnel thing? Is it a fluke? Is it a product of teams not having their defenses set? Is it optimization of personnel kind of going across the board, and all of a sudden every team is built to optimize its talent in a way that it wasn't even like 2 years ago?
And
I don't know.
And not to be lazy, it's probably a little bit of all of those things,
God
right?
Damn it, I knew you'd say that.
Hey, man, I'm a middleman, man. I'm not a middleman. I'm a middleman. I think
I'm the snowman already.
I think it's interesting because there's a finite number of minutes that all these numbers are derived from, and that's what I mean by like a Wayne Ellington and Seth Curry leading the league in shooting at a high volume from 3-point affects this more than Luka Doncic not being the greatest shooter, or Giannis Antetokounmpo taking a quarter of his shots. You pointed this out to me the other night. A quarter of his shots are these garbage pull-up threes, which kind of like, that's a big deal a little bit. And when multiple players do this, at the highest volume players do this, it affects these curves. But what we're seeing now, I think it is an optimization of talent. I do think people have isolated players in the draft that do things specifically well, and they let them do these things.
These numbers may come down, to be clear.
Yeah,
I mean, we're talking about under 20 games for the most part.
Yeah, but even a player like when you take a player like Anthony Edwards over a player like James Wiseman, I still think teams ask too much of these specific talents. They ask them to be more worldly than they are. But the Timberwolves and Warriors have treated these players, I think, with care, and they are not asked to be Luka Doncic or LeBron James. And I think if every team hones in these concepts, we get numbers like this, right?
That's kind of what I'm getting at. It's very hard to say, but there's just eye-popping numbers, man, from guys like Paul George, Dame Lillard, Jaylen Brown, Jokic, Embiid, Zach LaVine, like CJ McCollum, guys just performing so far above their typical rates.
They're shooting. Like, I was looking at some of these shooting numbers. Some of these guys are like, Joel Embiid too. These guys are shooting really great this year.
That's what I'm getting at. Like SGA, that guy's never been efficient in his career, and he's like at 61% true shooting percentage. I mean, he was league average before. Now you're like, he's a star?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. There's something weird going on this year, and I haven't figured out what it is. Yeah. It'll take some time to sort out how these numbers rise and fall, and guys will go cold, and defenses will adjust. But there's something with this like hyper efficiency that seems a little different.
People mentioned this in the Burger Bub last season, and the way the crowd or the surroundings of the game before coronavirus would affect play on the game. Do you think not playing to fans, not playing to media, not having noise, not traveling as much, better sleep stuff, sleep analytics, all this stuff does all that stuff contribute to these numbers, like not having the noise of normal NBA life?
I mean, I feel like it has to affect guys differently, right? Maybe Zach LaVine loves this shit, or maybe he's just shooting well, or maybe he's someone who gets nervous when he's in front of a large crowd of people and turns into a bricklayer.
Yeah,
who knows?
I was thinking about LeBron James and that photo of him sitting down on the court after he won the Bub championship and all that confetti. I'm like, what a lousy way to win it all, because you're just in the gym with a bunch of people. it feels like you're at a practice or a scrimmage, right? And not to discount even the level of difficulty it took to win in the bubble. I think emotionally it was more taxing than ever. But does this feel like a different game to people? We talk about pressure all the time and clutch genes, right? Doesn't that have to do with like your environment?
One thing I've noticed kind of to this idea is I know there's a pumped in crowd noise, but guys seem to really be chatty out there.
Yeah.
It must be that, you're only seeing your teammates. You don't get to see anyone except your team.
Yeah.
You go back home, you're only seeing, your family and the coaching staff and your teammates again.
Yeah.
Like people seem so happy to be like chatting with, oh my God, look at it. It's James Wiseman on the court. Oh,
yeah.
Love to crack some jokes with him, Seth Curry. Just like, yo, I get to talk to someone else. This is sick.
Oh, without a doubt.
And there really hasn't been a lot of that much like chippiness even. Like a little, there's been some back-to-back games when, flagrants and things like that. But in general, the players all kind of, the vibe is that they're all kind of in this together.
I know. I kind of want someone to maybe everyone on the court be like, Westbrook, chill. Like, we're not doing this right now, man. You'd be like, right. Okay, right. I'll do it when it counts. Like, yeah, just wait. We'll be back.
Yeah, wait till there's like actual fans, dude. Chill.
Yeah.
We're doing this for TV, It's wrestling.
Yeah, exactly. It must not feel like a real, in-game experience for these players who know. I mean, a lot of these rookies didn't even play March Madness. So, like, this is just basketball to them. They have never played in front of huge
Oh, yeah, I mean, that's
crowds.
kind of what your point before is interesting to me. Is someone like Zach LaVine, is he someone who just kills it in practice?
Yeah.
Like, he's awesome in practice, but it's a little bit different. It's a little bit different when there's people screaming and howling and there's all these, 40,000 eyeballs drilling into your back. Is it different? But when you're out there in an empty gym with the guys, just the lads,
dude,
maybe it's different.
I don't want to wear my Hokas just to the bodega. I want to go to Dime Square and show off these snow kicks.
No, you thrive in front of a crowd. That's when
right.
you go AI mode.
I'm no Anthony Simons, who is like a famously amazing shooter and player in practice. Like everyone from the Trailblazers is like, this guy is going to be so good. And we've never really seen a sustained amount of it in a game. But all we hear about is how good he is in practice, right?
I didn't know this, but this is what I'm talking about. Like Iverson mode.
Yeah.
Like Quo goes Iverson mode.
That's right. Practice. Bodega.
But only when there's eyes on him.
Yes.
Like you're at home eating over the sink, biohacking. Mm-hmm. As soon as like the bright lights come on, Quo goes Iverson mode.
Yeah, not only am I at the bar with my Hokas, I might have some pizza on me.
What a pod.
What a pod.
Oh, the perfect pod yet again. Blizzy.
I love cookies.
Blizzy.
I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies.